All right, what's going on, everyone? We're back at it. Been a while. We were just saying it's been a while since the both of us have been on the show. James, how you doing, my man? Blah.
I'm doing fantastic, man. Fantastic. How are you doing?
I'm doing quite all right. I am. We're gonna be talking about mostly about the NFL draft today. I'm satisfied with Green Bay's draft. I don't know about you.
Nah, Green Bay had a good draft. I thought Philly had a pretty good draft too.
I agree. So let's get right down to it. Who do you think were some of the winners and losers of the draft? I meant to, you take so that there's no overlap. I meant to say you take NFC, I take AFC, but I forgot to mention that obviously.
No problem. I can do that though.
Okay, go ahead.
So, biggest winner, I'm gonna say in the NFC East, I'm gonna go the Washington Redskins. I think they got the quarterback they ultimately wanted without giving up any draft capital at all.
Yeah, that's crazy because I read the day of the draft they were trying to trade into the top 5. I'm assuming to get him,
Absolutely.
and he fell in their lap at 15.
Yep. And they ended up getting a Montez Sweat, who I'll dive back into later. I think was one of the biggest steals in the draft, and I'll talk about why for the Redskins in particular. But I just thought they had a hell of a first round. I thought they got 2 blue chip positions of need, and I think they got potentially elite players at both. I mean, you can't really, if I knew how to evaluate talent from college to the NFL, I wouldn't have the job I have right now. But I'm assuming they're both going to be pretty good players, at least above average.
So you think that was the NFC team that had the best draft?
I wouldn't say the best draft.
Okay.
I think they had the best early draft.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
Because obviously there's a lot of late round steals and shit that people get, but that's really hard to predict right after the draft. I'm not I can't sit here and act like I watch college football film and things like that, but I do know the players that are really good. I can go off measurables, and I mean Montez Sweat has some of the most ridiculous measurables I've ever seen, and it's not like he's like a DK Metcalf where it's just all numbers and no production. I mean, he was a hell of a player at Mississippi State. So
yeah, he only fell because of his heart condition. I'm not sure about.
No doubt in my mind, he would have went top 10.
Yeah,
no doubt.
I agree. I agree. Washington had a pretty good draft for the most part. I think a lot of teams had pretty good drafts. There wasn't really a team where I'm like, man, what were you doing? What was that?
I have one.
No, I do too. Believe me, I do too. And I think we're gonna have the same one here in a little bit. But the winner for me in the AFC, I'd probably go New England Patriots off the top of my head.
Yeah, I agree.
N'Keal Harry at 32. I mean, once they picked him, I was like, God. I was like, that's such a Patriots move. Yeah. Just a really good pass rusher. No one. I'm not pass rusher. I mean pass catcher. No one. I expected them to take a wide out, but everyone else didn't seem to get the message. And when that happened, they're like, that makes so much sense. And I was like, I saw that coming a mile away. But I think he's going to be really good in that offense. I'm trying to think of who else they got. I'll have to look at my blog here.
They did get some good players.
Yeah. Joejuan Williams, I believe he's from Vanderbilt. I really like him, the corner. Chase Winovich, pretty good edge rusher out of Michigan. Damian Harris.
That's a good pick. I mean, I don't think he's going to set the world on
No,
fire,
I don't either.
I think New England can, first of all, get the most out of him, but second of all, getting him in the third round is a steal.
Yeah. Damian Harris, running back from Alabama in the third round. And then our boy, Yannick Just, tackle from West Virginia in the third round.
They did get my boy,
And then Jarrett Stidham in the fourth. I mean, it could end up being the heir apparent to Tom Brady. Who knows? But not a bad overall. I shouldn't even say not a bad draft. A very good draft by the Patriots. This might be the best one, I think, in the AFC.
I would be hard-pressed to disagree with you there, bud.
Yeah, and there are a few others I really like. What about you? There's one more I want to hear out of you in the NFC. Or not that I want to hear. I want to see if we have the same take.
Who had a good draft?
Yeah.
I definitely think that it's really hard to say. Honestly, I might have to go Green Bay, man. I really liked what Green Bay did in the
Don't
draft.
say that. Don't say that.
No, I do, because I think a lot of people don't like the Rashawn Gary pick because obviously he has off-the-field concerns, but he's a blue-chip prospect. I mean, he was the best player in the country coming out of high school. Aaron Rodgers isn't going to let that man slack.
Nah, off the field, I never thought he had off the field issues at Michigan. He may have.
Not off the field issues. They said it was a motor thing, like an effort thing. Sometimes, like he was way too talented to have the.
Possibly. I mean, possibly, but I mean, Green Bay doesn't fuck around with that. Like, if you're not gonna work, they'll draft guys solely because they work, and they avoid guys who don't work. So if they feel like he's, he can do it, and they took him, so.
I also really like the 49ers draft.
Yeah.
Them, getting Nick Bosa was a no-brainer, but then they doubled up with Deebo Samuel, which filled need in. He was, probably one of the better players available.
That really helps them because now they have Marquise Goodwin, I believe he's still there, to be the deep threat, and then Deebo Samuel to be middle of the field guy.
Yep. And then they have a couple pass-catching running backs. So
Nick Bosa just fell in their lap, and I mean that's absurd. The position that you really needed and the best player in the draft, it worked out for them perfectly. I'm going to steal one from you. I'm going to go to the NFC, and I want to see if you agree with me. The Arizona Cardinals had a very good draft. I want to see if you agree with me. I'm gonna go through their draft real quick.
Okay.
Okay, so we can dispute Kyler Murray. I think he could be really good.
I do too.
Byron Murphy in the second round. I really like that pick. Andy Isabella also in the second round. I like that pick. Kind of a Wes Welker type. I think he's a better player though. 4.3.
Isn't that the kid who ran a 4.3?
Yeah, went to UMass or somewhere. Really small school. Ran a 4.3 at the combine. White guy. I think that could end up working out. Zach Allen, edge rusher. He was supposed to be like a second round pick. They got him in the third. Hakeem Butler in the fourth round. He was supposed to be a second round pick. Fell to them in the fourth. Deontay Thompson, almost a first round pick for the longest time. Ended up being more of a second round pick. But they got him in the fifth. So they got some steals in that draft. However, I do. The thing that's holding me back for them is they should have drafted more offensive linemen. In the AFC, who else? Another draft that I really like is the Cincinnati Bengals.
Jones was a good underrated pick, I think.
Jonah Williams is not only the best offensive lineman in this class, he probably could have been a top 5 pick. But for whatever reason, they got, I don't know, scared isn't the right word. They just didn't like him it always happens to somebody leading up to the draft where we get too into it, you fall out of love of guys.
Dude,
they slip, and then they end up performing at a high level, and we're like, how the hell did he slip that far? It's because we're too into the draft process for the most part. We fall in love with other guys.
Did you listen to the Lefko show the other day?
I did not, no.
So he was talking about how NFL teams actually really shy away from Alabama offensive linemen because they don't last in the NFL.
That's a fair point. None of them really have.
He was like, he's like, when's the last said a guy that I never heard of, so I know he was a slightly older guy, but he's like, yeah, all those elite offensive linemen that come out of Alabama, he's like, they don't even last a decade in the league because they get the shit beat out of them for 4 years in the SEC. And I was like, dude, that's a really good point.
It is.
I mean, I don't like blanketing schools just because every player is individually different. So I'm not gonna be like, oh, don't draft Jonah Williams because he went to Alabama. But when he said that, I was like, damn, that's actually a really good point for as many
you could say that about a lot of different schools. I mean,
yeah.
It's in Alabama. I mean, they've had some really good players come into the NFL, but a lot of the secondary players haven't really panned out.
Yeah. Yep.
With the exception of maybe Marlon Humphrey, he's been pretty good. But trying to think of anyone else. AFC teams.
Are you talking
I just said Cincinnati.
Landon Collins.
Oh yeah. Okay, that's one that has obviously turned out pretty well. But yeah, Cincinnati. They drafted Jonah Williams, and then they got Jermaine Pratt. I really like from NC State linebacker.
They got a really good running back late too, didn't they?
I really love their running backs. They got Travion Williams from Texas A&M and Rodney Anderson from Oklahoma. And I just remember thinking, man, this is Joe Mixon's offense, but those two guys competing to be his backup, that's pretty solid.
Yeah, Travion is a hell of a third down back. I think he's going to be Tariq Cohen.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Any other winners you got off the top of your head?
Honestly, No, I don't even want to do that because it's more of a homer pick. I do think Philly had a pretty good draft.
I do too. I gave them. I'm gonna post it on my blog, but I gave them a. It wasn't anything great. It was good, not great. Yeah, I gave them a solid B.
So, and that's the funny thing about draft grades is you never know until they actually put on pads. But I didn't expect them to get, just because I thought they were very high on Jordan Mailata to play left tackle in the future, but apparently not. But I am not going to get mad. I mean, he was the number one offensive lineman on a lot of people's boards. He was easily the most athletic lineman, even out of guards and centers at the whole combine. I think sitting under Jason Peters for a year is going to be beautiful, and I like that pick.
Now, you've been wanting this for a few years. You've been wanting them to draft a really good offensive tackle in the first round.
If Dillard ends up being as good as they think he can be, they should have the best tackle in the NFL because Lane Johnson's already a top 5 tackle. I loved Philly's second round. It's funny that that was a historic defensive draft. That's usually where Howie goes and trade offense first 3 picks, but Miles Sanders could not fit in an offense better than he fits in Philly's, that zone running scheme.
Yep, I agree.
I would have rather us grabbed Paris Campbell than J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, but I really like the things that I've heard about Arcega-Whiteside. A lot of people said, because he didn't run at the combine, he was injured, and a lot of people didn't think he was going to be that fast. He ran a 4.49 at his pro day. I think he's going to be just fine. It's a big body receiver.
Yeah.
Our red zone squad is ridiculous.
Yeah, that should be really good this year.
Alshon, the 2 tight ends, and then 6'3", 225, Arcega-Whiteside, the 4 receivers. So with Jordan Howard pounding behind us. So, I really liked what they did there. Didn't really like that they picked a quarterback in the 5th round. I mean, I knew that they were going to pick a quarterback in some capacity, but the fact that they did it that early kind of upset me. You could just get, a camp arm later in the draft, but whatever. Really liked their draft as well.
Let me find another Oh, I know. So my other AFC team, and I have a few others I've given A's on for the AFC, but pure A's, not an A-, an A, I gave to New England, Cincinnati, and then the third one here, I believe, is Indianapolis.
I loved Indy's draft.
Yeah. I mean, Chris Ballard does it again. I mean, this is 3 drafts in a row where I'm like, fuck, dude. I mean, that's a really good draft. I mean, I'd be hard pressed to say he's not the best GM in the league right now. And he's done it. He has revamped that roster without even going through free agency.
Yep.
So we talked about some winners. Let's talk about some losers now. Biggest loser in the NFC for you. I already know who it is, but go ahead.
The New York Football Giants.
I had a feeling it was, and that's probably mine too in the NFC.
Just a bad draft. I mean, Daniel Jones, and it's so funny. Dave Gettleman told on himself. He told on himself, and I'm going to explain to you why. And this is exactly something else I heard on the Lefko show, and I was like, damn, that was a good point. He was like, they're asking him about Daniel Jones and why they picked him that high. And his rebuttal is, as the GM, well, we had intel that he wouldn't have been there at 17.
No.
So you're literally saying that he wasn't worth the pick that you picked him at, but he wasn't going to be there at 17. Why would you say that? You're the GM. Go up there and say, that was the best quarterback I had on my board, so I picked him. Done. Shut up. Done.
Yeah, just the way the board was falling. I did hear, I will give him some credit. I was hearing that he was going to go top 15. However, the way the board was falling, I think he would have been there at 17. It didn't fall the way a lot of people thought it would.
According to the Broncos and Redskins, neither of them wanted Daniel.
Well, I mean, just Dwayne Haskins kept falling.
Yeah.
If Haskins was there at 15, means Jones would have been there at 17.
I mean, the fact that they could have probably had Josh Allen and Daniel Jones just ruined the draft.
Yeah, and I mean, you take Jones at 6. Fine, I can almost forgive that. You got your guy. But then they passed on Montez Sweat at 17.
And pick, a good, who they picked. Dexter Lawrence is a good defensive tackle, but that's just not a blue chip position. You got rid of a very good defensive tackle you had for a 5th round pick and replaced them with a rookie, which you're supposed to do. But it's just the Giants just don't have a plan, man.
No, they
really don't. They don't know what they want to do. They are one of the worst rosters and teams in the entire NFL, but for some reason, the smart people up front think that they're right there. And they keep making
this reminds me so much of what we thought Seattle was going to be last year. Last year, everyone, including me, thought Seattle was rebuilding, but they didn't know they were rebuilding. And the Giants feel like that team, except the difference is that Seattle has, in my opinion, elite quarterback in Russell Wilson, and the Giants don't have an elite quarterback right now in Eli Manning. And they think they're not rebuilding, but they are.
No, absolutely.
But I will say, I kind of like the Dexter Lawrence pick because that gives them 3 pretty good defensive tackles. Dalvin Tomlinson, who's the other one? B.J. Hill, and Dexter Lawrence. Not bad. That's a good start to a defensive front. However, they shouldn't have passed on Josh Allen and Montez Sweat.
Who are their edge rushers?
Oh, exactly.
Vernon and JPP.
No, Vernon's gone. They traded him. Yeah.
Vernon and JPP aren't there. I don't know who their edge rushers.
Oh no, I agree completely. I agree 100%. And then, but the rest of the draft, I kind of like. I don't mind the DeAndre Baker pick. I don't mind the Julian Love pick. I don't mind the O'Shane Ximines pick in the 3rd round. Like, the rest of it was decent, but I don't know what they were doing for the 1st round. They don't have like you said, they don't have a plan.
The Jets also didn't have a very good draft. They did get the best player 1st round, but they took a lot of, like, character issue players later in the draft, according to Howard and things like that.
I mean, Ja'Kai Polite might end up being the steal of the draft.
True. They did get him late.
They got him in the 3rd round. He was a 1st-round talent. However, he had a lot of issues at the combine. You know, teams didn't like the way he answered questions, but the dude can play.
Yeah.
So, who knows? He might end up panning out for him, and that's the position they needed the most outside of quarterback. Well, they've got a quarterback now, but outside of quarterback, they needed a edge rusher, and they got one. What shirt are you wearing?
Patagonia.
Patagonia. Trying to think of another loser. I had more than one loser, but I think both of them were in the NFC. I didn't give many loser grades to a lot of these teams.
Also, actually, let me give another winner grade, the Dolphins, for getting Josh Rosen, who I think is going to be their quarterback for the next 10 years, for a bag of peanuts. So.
Yep, I agree. I only gave 2 grades. I probably need to change this. I only gave 2 grades.
That was my mind.
That were lower than a B. And one was the Giants. The other was the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, I didn't like them picking Hawkinson that early, dude. Not that he's not worth that pick. It's just like, dude, you guys have a lot of other shit to worry about.
I mean, well, I like Hawkinson, and he could be really good in that offense. But then they reached for their 2nd-round pick. I don't even know who Will Harris is. They picked in the 3rd round. They didn't pick an edge rusher until the 4th round. Like, that makes no sense. Their biggest need was edge rusher, and this was a draft loaded with edge rushers, especially in the 1st round, and they passed.
A lot more than a tight end. A tight end is like, that's something you put the cherry on top with. You know what I mean? Unless they have way other more pressing and valuable positions.
I mean, it was best player available, and they paid for Jesse James too, didn't they?
Yes, they did. I didn't even remember that. I forgot.
So granted, that gives them 2 pretty good tight ends, but you could have waited. Did a cop show up?
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I figured. I mean, those were really just my 2 really only losers of the draft. Everyone else I thought did pretty well.
It was a deep draft, so it was like kind of hard to mess up, honestly. It really was.
Hey, at least our teams didn't mess up.
Yeah, agreed.
Biggest steals.
Montez Sweat.
I would agree with that. I'm gonna be different. I'm gonna say AJ Brown in the 2nd round.
Well, I'm gonna tell you why though. Because
okay, go ahead.
Not only, I mean, obviously he has the size, intangibles, all that to be a really, really good player, and they got him in the 20s. But the fact that the Skins, who already have an elite defensive line, can throw him on there, and he's going to get one-on-one matchups all year long because of Kerrigan, Deron Payne.
Yeah, him and Kerrigan could be really good, special.
Dude, with those 2 beasts in the middle, with Deron Payne, Jonathan Allen in the middle, that's 3 first-round picks on their D-line. Like,
yep.
They're going to be hard to block next year.
No, all 4. No. Yeah, no.
All 4 of their linemen are first-round picks.
Yeah, you're right. I didn't think Jonathan Allen was, but yeah, you're right.
Nah, he was. Remember he slid down that draft.
Yeah.
He was supposed to be like, that was when the draft we went to.
Yeah, you're right. I remember that now. Yeah. That was a fun day, man.
Oh yeah.
I was so mad that because my friend lives in Nashville and he was sending me Snapchats of the festivities, and I'm like, I was kind of like, been there, done that, but.
Nah, Nashville was probably cooler.
Yeah, Nashville was probably cooler. Philly, I was disappointed with Philly, man.
Why?
Well.
In the city or the draft?
The city. No, the draft was amazing, but the city sucked.
City, dude, it's not that cool.
Philly sucks.
It's really not. Like, most cities aren't that cool, Philly included. It's just the fucking
trash. Nah, Nashville's a fun town.
Well, Nashville's cool because it's like, it's like a music city, and everybody goes there to like, it's like a vacation spot. Philly is not a vacation spot.
Not many people are like, hey, we should get a Philly. Everyone, no one's like, hey, let's go to Philly.
Yeah, like you're not gonna vacation to Philly. It's not the type of place that it is. It's not at all.
I agree. So any other draft stuff you want to talk about?
Let me think. Besides the fact that I think the Patriots should have unloaded one of their seconds for Josh Rosen because they could have just kept winning Super Bowls for another 10 years. No, that's basically all I have.
I was shocked they even took a quarterback. They seem content that Brady's the guy until he dies, I guess.
The GOAT. I love me some TB12.
I know you do. So NBA playoffs is going on. I only threw this in here because both of our teams are in it. But I haven't paid attention to it at all, man.
Celtics have been playing well. They split with Milwaukee in Milwaukee. So
I did see that.
Phillies, both series are 1-1. Philly plays tonight. I'm excited.
I'm more into hockey. I'm following the Stanley Cup. I think I lost you. There you are. Yeah, I got you.
So let's get into this game from here for 5 minutes or so. So I want to hear your thoughts.
Okay. I mean, it's probably gonna be longer than 5 minutes. I'm trying to figure out.
Just the figures.
I know. So here's my opinion. I thought, and we're both in the same boat here, I'm pretty sure. I don't understand the criticism that Game of Thrones is receiving.
Me neither. Also, though, I don't like... I know, because I know a lot of people do this with a lot of things, not just Game of Thrones, but, like, somebody will really like something, and no matter what, they'll like it anyway. Like, does that make sense? Like, you'll have, like, a favorite music artist, and they'll put out a shitty album, and they'll still be like, oh, no, this is good. I think there's a little bit of that, because I'm not going to lie to you, since I didn't think Season 7 was as good as it should have been.
And I'm right there with you.
And not to say that it's still not 9 out of 10 amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still absolutely unbelievably good, but I don't know, man. The reason episode 3 disappointed me wasn't because of that episode. It was because of episode 2, if that makes sense. Because I thought that episode 2 was the setup for a lot of deaths.
Yes.
And episode 3, like with Brienne, with Sam, and all that shit. Like, I thought that was like the character arc completing, and they were gonna kill those people off, and then they didn't.
Yeah, I agree. No, they're not killing Sam. They're not killing Sam.
I agree, but I was trying to tell them this at the same time. Like, don't just sit there and be like, kill people for the sake of killing people.
I agree.
Like, that's why. So this is the way I'm looking at it right now. I'm not going to judge that episode until the season's over, because
I agree.
A lot of things play off of each other. So we'll see. Honestly, the entire season could come together at the end, and I could be like, dude, that was the most amazing thing I've ever seen. I don't know. So that's how I feel about it.
I agree. But I really love the point that you made. Like, there's fans out there who just love anything that some shows just shit out. And it's that way with movies too. And I feel like it's especially there in Game of Thrones. And that's why it's a little surprising to see this criticism. But it does feel like for a lot of the episodes that Game of Thrones, could shit out an episode, and the fans would be like, "Oh my god, top 5 episode." And that was the case last year with the whole Spoils of War episode, if you remember that, with Daenerys and Jaime meeting on the battlefield.
What's killing though?
I thought I thought that was the most overrated episode in Game of Thrones history because nothing happened until the final 15 minutes. But fans act like it's a top 5 episode and it's not, in my opinion. But however, I loved the episode Sunday night. If I could go through my texts, I texted my brother the whole hour and a half. And if I could go through my texts, I would. But it'd probably take too much time. All I remember was I started texting him. He texted me at like 9:03, and he just said, "Let's fucking go." And I was like, "Here we go." And then, the battle starts. There's some dialogue. And I remember after the Dothraki have their flaming swords, they charge, and I remember texting, "Let's go, baby!" And then they get wiped out. And I just sent him back like 7 minutes later. I said, "We are so fucked." I was like, "We are so fucked."
Well, see, you know what's kind of pissing me off about the criticism of that episode and just like season in general is that like people are bitching exactly what they predicted.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're like, "Oh, Jon didn't kill the Night King," and it's like, dude, would you have just been able, would you have rather have been able to predict the entire episode? Would that have made that entertaining?
No, but I think I saw something today. I think predictability sometimes leads to the best story. Sometimes.
True, that's true. You shouldn't just change things for the sake of changing.
And I feel like they did that this episode. About that exactly. Because they wanted to switch it up and not make it Jon, because they basically said Jon's been the hero too many times. Let's shake things up. And I was like, no, you have built this the last 4 years for it to be a standoff between Jon and the Night King and for him to beat him. And the showrunners basically shrugged.
I thought it was going to happen too.
I thought so too. When they were on the battlefield, I'm like, I even said on Twitter, I was like, "Here we go," and it didn't happen. And then that was when he, raised everyone from the dead, and I immediately I remember texting my brother, "Panic, panic, panic," because Jon was out there with all the whites around him, and I was like, "Where's the panic button?" But no, that was my biggest problem with the episode.
It was intense. I didn't have problems with the episode. It's just like I don't know what people wanted there, dude. It's like, yeah, like they weren't gonna be army. Somebody had to kill the Night King. Everybody knew that's how that episode was.
I think they were upset because that's not what they expected. They expected the dead to win that battle and the Night King to, march toward King's Landing. I think that's what I expected.
Well,
and then they're pissed off about it.
I liked it.
No, and I think I sent to you. I think people are just looking for things to complain about.
Oh, I mean, that's a given, dude. You go on Twitter. I mean, that's just what social media is. It just gives everybody a voice, and 90% of people are fucking whiners, and that's how that goes. But
I can't even understand the complaints about the darkness of the episode. However, my argument is the episode is titled "The Long Night." That implies darkness. The episode's going to be dark.
It was in the show was at night.
Yeah, it's a night shoot. It's going to be dark. I didn't hear this amount of complaining during the Blackwater episode. I didn't hear this amount of complaining during the Battle at the Wall episode. Like, those were both night shoots, night battles.
Well, I think I also know what's happening is that, now, game has been mainstream for, a few years, but now it's the biggest show on Earth, and everybody's watching it, and I think just, a lot of people don't necessarily get it, if that makes sense.
I agree.
Kind of like with Star Wars, I know a lot of people are complaining about the Star Wars, but it's I'm not a Star Wars fan, so my opinion on a singular Star Wars movie doesn't really.
Yeah, and I don't hate Star Wars as much as everyone else, the new Star Wars at least, but it isn't great. It's not great. but yeah,
dude, I love that episode. I don't know what they're about to do now because I know Cersei is stacked up right now, and Jon doesn't have anybody.
Yeah, I mean.
But you know what? I actually realized what this next episode is going to be. I think Yara's going to go back and win over the Ironborn, and that's going to be the army now.
I mean, that's gonna help.
Well, I mean, if you remember, Yara was going back to the Iron Islands, and she sent Theon to Winterfell.
Yeah.
So I completely forgot.
Which, by the way, I mean that was. Honest to goodness, and I think we both have the same opinion because you liked my tweet about it. That might have been the hardest part to watch because I have hated Theon for years because of the way he betrayed the Starks. and he's had a great redemption, and I'm glad the way he went out. I still don't like him. But you like him now?
It wasn't his fault. It was Ramsey's fault.
It wasn't Ramsey's fault. Theon made his choice.
At the beginning when he took Winterfell, I mean, yeah, he was a scumbag for that, but that was a new dog, though. I love Jaime. Jaime's like one of my favorite characters.
Yeah, but Jaime didn't betray anybody.
He stabbed Ned Stark in the back of the
No, Jaime didn't do that.
Oh, yeah, the other guy didn't. He stabbed that guy. No, but, like, no. Jaime was the biggest cocksucker in the show for 2 seasons, and now he's, like, my favorite character outside of Jon.
That's fair. But I love Jaime even when he was a douchebag.
No, I kind of did, too, low-key.
It was honest to goodness. That scene from It's Always Sunny when they're at the high school reunion and Charlie keeps saying, "That's so cool. You're so cool, Adriano."
So cool, Adriano.
That's the way I was with Jaime. Anytime he did anything those first 2 seasons, I was like, "Oh, you're so cool, Jaime." But no, for me, like, I think that this episode for me is like a top 3 or 5 episode.
I think it's definitely top 5. I don't think they could ever beat Battle of the Bastards.
No, I waited too long for Battle of the Bastards, and I was so emotionally, what's the right word, like, into that episode. I can remember jumping up and down on my bed when the Knights of the Vale rode in, just shouting, "Yes, yes, yes, yes!"
Bro, that is the best episode of any show I've ever seen.
Oh, 100%.
Hands down.
The one thing I will say about the episode Sunday is it felt like they almost forced it to be too big of a battle. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It did feel a little forced. There's a lot of things I remember watching, and I'm like, they could have probably cut some of this.
Yeah. Yeah. I think they could have also, I mean, I don't know. I'm not going to, dude, it's that fucking battle scene cost millions of dollars to make.
It was
so
$15
like,
million. And that's the other thing, is people don't understand the budget Game of Thrones has. This ain't Marvel where they have $300 million to spend on a battle. They had $15 million.
Yeah, exactly.
Which, by the way, have you seen Endgame yet?
I'm literally going to go tomorrow, I think.
Okay.
So don't ruin.
I'm not ruining it for you. I was a little disappointed, but the final 45, a little bit. The final 45 minutes, though, is amazing.
Fair enough. I definitely got to go see it.
You'll like it. I liked it. It was a little disappointing for me.
Do you think it was better than Infinity War?
No, I think Infinity War was better.
Oh, dude, Infinity War was unbelievable.
Yeah.
No.
And I think a lot of people feel the way I feel about Endgame, about the Battle of Winterfell, and I just want to smack them.
What do you mean?
Like, they're like me. They're like, "Oh, I didn't hate it. I was just disappointed."
Yeah.
And I just was like, "Well, you're wrong."
Can you tell me why it was disappointing without any spoilers?
I probably can. Well, one, I didn't like the portrayal of Thor.
Okay.
Thor went from being this awesome badass in Infinity War to being, I don't want to give it away, but just a letdown in Endgame.
Okay.
It wasn't as action packed as I thought it was in the middle of the movie. So the middle of the movie was not boring, but I expected more action. So I might have to see it again, but it wasn't horrible. I liked it, but
Okay.
and it didn't go down the way I thought it would, I guess. So again, I think I have to see it again, but
Yeah, it's definitely something I want to see multiple times. So.
well, unless you got something else, I'm ready to go.
Same. Philly is going to kick some fucking ass this season. I'm putting it out there right now. So that's my final.
I'll go ahead and say this Green Bay defense is going to look a hell of a lot different than in recent seasons.
Hell of a lot better.
Hell of a lot better too. My only problem with Green Bay's draft, I would have liked to have drafted more pass catchers.
They're yeah. I mean, Aaron Rodgers makes the pass catchers anyway.
They seem to really like the receivers we drafted last year, and a lot of them had moments.
St. Brown, I think, is good.
What's that?
Equanimous St. Brown, I think, is good.
St. Brown, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, those two guys had moments. They're just young, so who knows, but maybe next year. Next year's supposed to be a really good receiver class.
Good, because the Eagles brother.
Yep, I will let you go and deal with that Baltimore traffic.
That's what I'm dealing with right now. All right, brother. Thank you.
All right, later.